Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to see us in this new way that we all congregate. I'm super excited to have everyone here today. Today, we'll be talking about navigating cultural differences in decision-making, understanding Hispanic, Latinx family systems, and cultural constructs. And I wanted to start off by introducing our guest speaker today, Dr. Manuel Moya-Tapia, who's here and will be giving the presentation today. A few housekeeping rules. First off, if everyone can turn off their microphones so that we can not have any interruptions throughout, and then we'll have a Q&A afterwards. I'd like to take this time to introduce our speaker, who I'm super excited to hear speak today. His name is, like I said, El Dr. Moya-Tapia. He's from Lima, Peru. He studied medicine at the Universidad San Martín de Porres. After graduation, he worked at the Peruvian National Cancer Institute, Maya's Heller Research Division. He did his internal medicine residency at Bronx Lebanon Hospital Center here in New York City, where I'm located in the Bronx, and after which he worked at Hartford Hospital as an oncology hospitalist prior to pursuing his most recent training in palliative care at NewYork-Presbyterian-Columbia while Cornell. He is now an oncology hospitalist at NewYork-Presbyterian-Columbia University Medical Center and an assistant professor of medicine. So I am super excited, like I said, and Dr. Moya, you can take it away from here and we'll jump back in at the end for some questions.
Thank you so much for our presentation. So I will share my screen for presentation. 1 minute, please. And I'm sorry about the delay. Very good. So I'll share the screen now. So my presentation is navigating cultural differences in decision-making, understanding Hispanic Latinx family system and culture constructs. And we have to understand the Hispanic culture, and first of all, we'd like to how do we mentally picture Hispanic family or Hispanic people? Maybe we picture it as a family of 5. Maybe we picture as a single mother with 4 daughters. Maybe we picture as a couple of siblings working together. Maybe we picture as a family of farmers in the highlands of some southern country from our borders. But Hispanic has many faces. Some of them are African descent. Some of them are Japanese descent. Some of them are Chinese descent. But they also are part of our culture, or pop culture. People like Enrique Martinez Morales, also known as Ricky Martin, or the son of an Quechua woman, like Benjamin Bratt. Or what about a known actor like Ramon Antonio Gerardo Esteves, also known as Marty Sheen. Or a German descent Peruvian actor like Christian Dietrich Meyer-Sender, known from telenovelas in Telemundo. Or maybe a Venezuelan descent pop star like Mariah Carey. And what about Linda Jean Cordova Carter, or original Wonder Woman? They are also part of our politics, like Senator Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Alex Padilla, Catherine Cortez Masto, Robert Menendez, and Ben Ray Lujan, among many others, including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the House of Representatives. But our story as Hispanics and Latinos stem from very, very long time ago. As every story has a beginning, this started around 10 BC with a small tribe called the Latini. This small tribe later became the Roman Empire. As the Roman Empire began his fall, then Hispania, one of his provinces, started taking prominence and became the Spanish Empire. This Spanish Empire had large extensions of territories, mainly in America, but also in Africa and Asia. These territories were divided politically, but also by religion. It was divided in 4 different viceroyalties: the Viceroyalty of New Spain, the Viceroyalty of New Granada, the Viceroyalty of Peru, and the Viceroyalty of Rio de la Plata. But most importantly, there were 5 different dioceses, which, with each small difference in leadership, led to different religious customs and ultimately cultural differences that are common from each region. And these dioceses are the Diocese of New Spain, Mexico, the Diocese of Santo Domingo, the Diocese of New Granada, Colombia and Venezuela, the Diocese of Peru, and finally the Diocese of Rio de la Plata. Now, there are 20 different countries that speak Spanish. 19 of them located in South America and Central America, 1 of them in Africa. As you can see, the word Latino, Latinx, and Hispanics, they aren't the same. Latinx is anyone that comes from a Latin origin. That includes also Brazil. In a more extended sense, is also everyone that is a descendant of the Roman Empire, like Italy, Romania, Spain, and France. But we are to focus on our Latin American people from origin. So we have the Latino, including Brazil, and we have the Hispanics, that does not include Brazil, but does include Spain, and everyone in between. That is, there are most of the people that we take care of. So Latinx, not the same as Hispanic, not the same as Hispanic. So this is an older picture from the census of 2013. The new census are to come yet. But the most important information here is that Hispanic population went from 7 million in 1970 to 60.6 million today. And they're projected to double by 2050. Hispanics over 65 are expected to increase at 200% by 2030. This will drive cancer as a leading cause of death, as cancer is related to aging. There will be more encounters for people from Latinx descent, and most likely uninsured if undocumented. This will bring a heavy burden to our systems. And we, as frontline providers, have to figure out how to help this population. What challenge do we expect when providing care to Hispanic patients and other families? First of all, we have to understand that they are a diverse group, heterogeneous people. And this is thing from the country of origin and the region of origin, as well as the degree of education, what socioeconomic class they belong, the immigration status they have, as well as the degree of acculturization. The end-of-life differences among Hispanic Latinx when compared to Northern European descent, they're very characteristic. Latinx people have increased inpatient bed. decreased acceptance of hospice care, an increased psychosocial distress, and lower rate of advanced care planning. As in retrospective cohort studies, we have seen in national cancer database, 1,500 hospitals in the United States have evaluated 600,000 individuals. 21% of them receive palliative care. Only 3,500 Hispanic individuals, 15.9%, receive palliative care versus 106,000 from non-Hispanic white individuals. And this is particularly true in minority serving hospitals, where it's less likely than non-minority serving hospitals patients to receive palliative care. And why this happened? Because as we have advanced in time, we have realized that there are limitations and we need to implement more systems to help the Latin population. But as you go away from the cities, you realize that these systems are not in place. And that's the reason why minority serving hospitals outside the cities, you get to see this more prominently. Why the patients were less likely to receive palliative care? And this is very important for us to acknowledge. There is a clinician implicit bias. We assume that culturally diverse patients want more aggressive care. And it's important that we get to change that in ourselves first. Not feeling skilled at cross-cultural communication. So what do we do to correct all of this? We have to become educated. Culturally sensitive education is important. So to begin with, we need to understand the different kinds of cultural constructs. And it's very important for us to understand that there are a vertical and horizontal axes of how we relate to people. There are cultures that are vertically individualist, that they believe the individual is unique and superior by hierarchy. There are vertical collectivists, that they believe the group is more important, but some individuals are more important than others. And then you have people that are in the horizontal spectrum that believe that individuals are unique but not superior. That's horizontal individualism. And cultural collectivism. Horizontal collectivism is groups more important than individuals, and all in the group members are equal. So when we see how these different cultural constructs land, you realize that Latin America is a vertical collectivist country. And going back again, what that means? It means groups more important than individuals, but some individuals are more important than others. So Hispanic patients share cultural norms which affect their decision-making, and they may be relevant to their end-of-life care. The most important thing that we have to realize is personalism. It's the focus on relationships. And then we realize that they want to be treated first as a person rather than going straight to business. That's why it's so important when dealing with Spanish people, Hispanics, Latins, to realize that they want to be touched, they want to be hugged, they want to be kissed, if they allow so. What is also important to realize that there is this concept of respect and sympathy. What this means that they have to believe that we deserve the respect. We are doctors, we are nurses, we are healthcare providers, and they believe because we are in these professions, we deserve respect, and this is very important to keep this respect in order to continue serving them. It's also important for them to have a sense of sympathy, like you care for them. I know this word has very cultural hard meanings, but it is important to understand that this is just academical jargon, is machismo and marianismo. What this means is that males have a role in family as caregivers, and for them to show pain is a sign of weakness. Therefore, they will not want to show it. There is also another form of construct that is called cavalierism, chivalry, where it's important for men to be courteous to women and to provide care in a more sympathetic way to a female counterpart. And marianism is the construct of woman as a caregiver, someone that provides care in the family, and that's why we get to see women heavily involved in the care of their parents as they age. Also, we get to see fatalism and spiritualism, which is the belief that God and fate are important. So we always hear things like, it is God's will. And finally, familism. So I will go in a little bit more detailing of every of these aspects again. Personalism, as we see, is very important. Hugs, kisses. And this is among your peers, among your colleagues, among healthcare providers, among family. Formal friendliness. Great emphasis on personal relationships. In the Hispanic culture, it's both people-oriented and collectivist, and we have to realize that. Hispanics generally value personal relationships over status, material gain, and institutional relationships. So to treat an Hispanic, Latinx patient, we have to realize that it's very important for them to have a personal connection with their providers. Respeto y simpatia. And this has to do with your position in the hierarchy, like a mom and her children, like the respect we have to the officers in the streets, like policemen, or the office of the president, as well as the respect we have to our medical providers. Respeto is an understanding that the level of courtesy and decorum required in a given situation in relationship to other people of particular age, sex, and social status. Simpatia is the emphasis on warmth and positivity, while de-emphasizing on the negative and conflict in social interaction. Machismo and marianism, as I was mentioning before. This is the typical picture that we have of machismo, the man and the whole group of women, which, as we advance in time, is becoming less and less common. But as we get to see first generation immigrants from small towns in the highlands of our South American countries and Central American countries, we get to see a lot of this construct, as well as marianism. Machismo encompasses a positive and negative aspect of masculinity, including bravery, honor, dominance, aggression, sexism, sexual prowess, and reserved emotions. As I was mentioning before, cavalierism or chivalry is a positive image of male gender role characteristics such as chivalry, bravery, and family provider attributes. Marianism emphasis in the role of women as family and home center. It encourages passivity, self-sacrifice, and chastity. Fatalism and spiritualism. It's all about our road in life and fate. We have a predetermined road, and it's all set by God or the high powers they believe in. Fatalism is the belief that the course of the fate cannot be changed and that life events are beyond our one's control. Cancer fatalism is defined as the belief that cancer is unavoidable regardless of personal action, or that death is certainly when cancer appears. Spiritualism is the belief that God is actively involved in the world. Collective nature of religious practices and sense of community is important in spiritualism as well, and gives a strong sense of community in the Hispanic Latin population. Familism, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important constructs. The sense of family, this large family that Latins are characteristic for, and that includes our counterparts from Europe, in Spain, and in Italy. The need to provide care to our elders. A multifaceted traditional Hispanic culture value that dictates norms, expectations, and belief about family. A central feature of familism is subjugation to one's individual needs to those of the family. And this is reason why we protect our elderly and we don't let our elderly make decisions when they are too old. It's part of this cultural construct, protecting them from harmful information. And this also will lead to delays on assigning a healthcare provider. And this is not because of lack of decision, it's because everyone in the family wants to be involved in the decision making. And at times also will lead the patient to avoid making the decisions, as they don't want to feel anyone in the family as they are isolated or they are the target of the rest of the family if they have to make decisions. As I was mentioning, this will lead to delays on decision making as we decide as a collective. So how do we navigate these cultural differences? First of all, ask. The most important thing is ask. Only 45% of times the medical provider perception of what is going on is concordant to what the actual patient preferences is. Continue asking questions. Ask what role they want their family to play. Ask them to define who will be the decision making. And what kind of decisions they will be involved. Because at times, they want to make the decision by themselves. Or if they want their family involved at all. 69% of Hispanics wants to make shared decisions, either with their family or with their healthcare provider, which means that there is 31% of Latinx people that will choose to make decisions by themselves. So if we assume and we let everyone else make the decision, we are missing a 31% chance of having them making their own decision. So what is this graph all about? I think it is where we start most of the time. We are culturally aware of how the culture works, but we need to go one step more and become culturally sensitive and understand a little bit more the emotions and the construct of these patients. So we can become culturally competent as we practice and become more expert in how these constructs work in every family. To finally what? Provide cultural safety, which is the goal, in our opinion, of how to provide care. Advancing from awareness to sensitivity to competency, in finally realizing that providing a cultural appropriate care will be safe for the patient. What is cultural awareness? The recognition of nuances of one's own culture and other cultures. What is cultural sensitivity? Being aware that cultural differences and similarities between people exist, without assigning them any kind of value. And cultural competency is the ability to understand, communicate with, and effectively interact with people across cultures. And finally, developing cultural humility, where it's a process of self-reflection and a lifelong inquiry involving self-awareness of personal and cultural biases, as well as awareness and sensitivity to significant cultural issues of others. Core to this process is cultural humility. And this is the deliberate reflection of our own bias and values. For example, someone might prefer independence of family members versus interdependence between their own cultural values. So how do we navigate these cultural differences? We have to create culture specialists to help these people receive the best care possible. To implement specialized bereavement programs. As we understand, everyone in these groups have a different way to process their emotions, as they have different cultural constructs. We have to use advanced care planning tools, which includes trained social workers, case coordinators, as well as the specialized bereavement programs. And to remember that not all interpreters are cultural specialists. They're very useful, but not all of them will be culturally competent. In conclusion, what I want you to take away from this? Culturally sensitive education to clinicians will help improve palliative care for Hispanic populations, and not only palliative care, all kinds of care in healthcare. Cultural constructs may influence how information is received and how decisions are made within Hispanic Latinx families. There is no such thing as one size fits all. Everyone manifests different ways and forms and degrees of these cultural constructs. So every individual will have a different way to see things, and we have to ask. Consider resources within your own healthcare system that may support working effectively and in culturally safe manner with Hispanic population. Making assumptions about individuals based on ethnicity and cultural identity risks stereotyping. Sometimes the stereotype might be right, but having stereotypes as our only guidance will only cause issues of communication. That's why it's important for us to be competent in cultures and be humble to realize that we have limitations and always ask questions. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Moya-Tapia. This is wonderful. I mean, even as a person who is of Hispanic Latinx heritage, I learned so much, and so I'm super grateful that you gave us this really great presentation. I want to open it up to questions from our audience, and also while we do that, I wanted to ask my own question, because I used to work previously in hospital administration, and I find that, you know, we keep dumping trainings on our already overextended clinical staff. And so to learn not just about Hispanic Latinx cultures, and, you know, we serve many populations here. And so have you ever given the thought of involving community members as part of those that can offer cultural sensitive care to our patients?
I think that's a great question. And it is very important to have our community involved. But I think that this is something that we have to work together with administration, and this is very hard to have this connection. We have to have, I believe, alliance between hospital systems and the community, so we can build the trust among the community, and they have a sense that we are not just the place where you come when you are sick. We can be a place of resources when you are healthy. So when in my practice, when I see community leaders, like, let's talk about a pastor or a priest, which they're community leaders, and the family wants them involved, I'm very happy to have them on board and talk to them and try to get a sense of who these people are and how they can help me to get through their belief systems in order to help them the best. So in a way, they can be a resource. But you have to be careful because they are not aware of how the system works. So you have to navigate them through the system as well. So I think it's a great resource if you know very well the system you're working with, and you can guide them through. But it's also important to have them, to have programs in the hospital or the healthcare system that reach out to them so they know how the system works, and they don't have false expectations, they don't give false expectations to the family.
And with that being said, I know that at least, in our cultures, we believe a lot of the things that are not offered in the hospital setting. So such as herbalism and, different indigenous practice, and this being the Society of Integrative Oncology, when we're looking at those things. And I've seen case studies in hospitals where they actually have like an indigenous healer, or they have other people that are involved. It seems to be really great for our communities in particular. And I've also seen some studies that also looked at some of the Asian communities that involved some of those practitioners in the system. I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? I would love to go to a place where that includes that, but those are so rare. So I've never seen one, so.
Wow, yeah, Sam, that's a really, really, really good question. And I believe right now, one of the hospitals that's doing something like this is Memorial Sloan Kettering, where they have created their own app where they have a list of the herbs that the people uses, so they can get to see whether there's any interaction with their chemotherapy. And we know that studies shows that holistic medicine does not really have more value than placebo. However, placebo is a 5% above tossing the coin, 50-50, so 55% chances of working. But most importantly than the chance of these herbs working is the fact that it's part of the culture, and that get them to sense that you respect them. And that goes through the concept of respect. So if we respect their culture, they will respect us back. And it's important for us to understand that you have these practices and help them mediate our way of practicing medicine with their way to heal themselves. So if we get to talk about these things, as long as this doesn't hurt the patient, why not?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I do have the app on my phone with Memorial Sloan Kettering's herbal interactions with any of the cancer treatment. I think it's a great tool for this specific conversation. I wish that they had it in Spanish because I feel like I can refer that to a lot of patients, because I just think it's a really great resource. And so thank you for bringing that up. That is a good place for us to look. And also just wanted to remind our audience that if there's any questions, I can keep going all day, because this is just such an interesting conversation, but I also wanted to open it up for more questions. But in the meantime, I can keep asking. Have you ever thought about some of the things that the American healthcare system lacks? Like you talked about the consultation and how, individualism versus collectivism.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, and I know, I'm a big hugger, and I many times expect that in return. But I'm also, third generation Dominican. And so, there's differences. My kids would certainly think it's weird that a doctor would hug you. And so, and do that kind of stuff. But I mean, how do we try to get those things sort of in the consultation where it doesn't seem weird, where a doctor can greet you with a hug? And I don't know, I feel like it's a complicated conversation to have, because God forbid they get accused of something inappropriate, but at the same time, you also want to be sensitive to people's, how they interact with each other.
That's a very good question. I think this comes to what I said initially. You have to become culturally competent. And so all start with being aware of your own culture and aware of the culture of other people, and then becoming sensitive to the differences, and finally becoming competent to it. So there is no really good rules. It's reading people. You learn to read people as you continue practicing. It's easier, of course, if you belong to the culture, because you get to see the differences. But as I was mentioning before, there are 5 different regions, and you get to see the difference between Latinx people. It's like If you come from the Caribbean, you have a way to behave. If you come from Mexico and Guatemala, Central American part of Latin America, you get to see how people behave. It's a little bit different. If you come from South America, from all the Andes area, everyone is a little bit different, a little bit more reserved, right? So everyone has in common this, they want to be touched, they want to be hugged, but in different degrees. So rule of thumb is use a therapeutic touch. If the patient offers the hug, don't reject it, just hug them back. Of course, don't go over a few seconds, otherwise it becomes awkward, right? So it's just let them guide you. Be active listeners, just see what they're doing, how they react. If they lean forward, they may want to hug. So if you show your arms like this and they hug you back, great. If you do like this and they do nothing, it's like, okay, I tried. So you drop it there, right?
Yes, absolutely. I agree. That was really a great response, because I think we have to, things move so quickly in the healthcare setting that we lose touch with our intuition and see, like, if we can read what our patients want and their caregivers. And so, yeah, that's a really good point. And I wondered what you thought about hospital food. Again, this is a Society of Integrative Oncology, so I have plenty to say here. I feel like,
of course,
as a health educator myself, and somebody that wishes I could see, really delicious plant-based foods and not such processed foods on our plates. I think our patients would like rice and beans in some of those trays. So what are your thoughts on that?
Can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, about the hospital food that's offered.
Oh, yes.
And how it lacks the cultural, it goes beyond just the practitioner, but also the foods that we see on our trays.
Oh my God, it is rough. I have been also a patient in the American system a couple of times. And first of all, there is no salt. Second, there is no seasoning. And all Hispanics, it doesn't matter where you come from. We are big in seasoning, big in salt. So you come to the hospital and everything tastes bland for us. So, and I think that's the first strike, because in order to get to the heart of a Latinx person, you go through the mouth, you go direct to the stomach, you go through their heart. So
that's right.
So in my practices, unless there is a medical condition that prevents me to give them their home food, I would say, bring them home food. I'm fine with that. Let them be happy. They're in the hospital already suffering. Someone coming at 5 a.m. in the morning, prick them with needles to get some blood. At least let them enjoy their home food.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I'm a breast cancer survivor myself, and so what happens is that, and now I work here, helping patients coordinate their care, and I serve as a patient advocate. And one of the most popular questions I have is, can you go get me some food downstairs? I ordered from the local restaurant here in a largely Latinx community. So so that is the way to our heart. The thing is that, like, I also understand that some people are on restrictive diets, they can't eat certain things, but for sure, I think that a lot can be done in that aspect. I think people would feel more seen if the food more matched the community. And this is, 70% of our community here in Washington Heights, New York, is either immigrant or son and daughters like myself of immigrants. And so, that would be a beautiful beginning to, just establishing trust and feeling seen in the healthcare setting. And I don't know, I don't know if there's any more questions. I can keep going and talking, but I did want to open it up to anyone who had any questions. Beyond food, and maybe having some of the folks that we see as like spiritual leaders, other things. Like, I remember I did a wellness program here in this hospital for 6 years, and we brought in Zumba dancers. That it was a wellness program, and once a month we had these dances, and people really came. Like, they weren't as consistent with their appointments, but they came to those Zumba classes. What do you think about bringing other parts of the community inside the hospital? We've talked about food, we've talked about spirituality. What about other things?
I think the more we integrate the community into the healthcare system, the more success we have to treat patients. It all comes from the patient believing in the system. Like, we put a heavy burden into our systems as a culture. We respect the authority, but as we respect the authority so much, we also get disappointed deeply when when we see the system failing us. And I think in order to stop this cycle of trust and broken hearts, we need to start incorporating the people, you know, and whatever way this looks like. If it's through having the religious leaders involved, great. If it's through having leaders in other cultural things like dance, like sports, that would be also great. I think that as organizations, we fail to reach out to the community, and we should be doing a lot more to reach out, and that will be a lot more trust, as the people will start feeling that the system cares about us, not only when we are sick.
Did you see that in Peru when you were growing up? Did you see these things in their healthcare system?
Yes, that's something that we get to see. You know, in South America, the healthcare systems are not the greatest. Peru, in particular, dedicates a very small percent of their GDP, about 8%, if I recall correctly, which is nearly nothing. But we get to see a lot of activities, like they organize a communal party, and the leaders of the local regional healthcare system organize a communal party so they can do vaccinations for free while they are doing a party, so everyone else can come, and they get to interact with the leaders of the community. They become part of the community in these ways. And I think one of the big problems about the American healthcare system is that there is a lot of private organizations. We have the American healthcare system is privatized, and there is very little leadership to have all of these different healthcare systems to provide care to the communities, because the interest on the end of the day is more about, although it's about caring for people, there is also there is a need to make profitable these systems. So we need to realize that there are certain limitations, because we live under an economical system, capitalism, that works great, but it has these limitations, and we have to overcome these limitations, because healthcare is a social endeavor. It's not only an individual endeavor healing someone, it's also preventing that the majority of people get sick. And how do we do that? But by reaching to the community. So
I could not agree with you more on that. For sure. While we understand these are the systems that we work under, you know, there is a human at the end of that. And if no time, the time that we're living in now has shown us that we have to all take care of each other in order to be able to fully thrive as a community. So yes. So thank you so much for this really rich discussion. I'm so grateful for it and for all you've taught us. And I just wanted to take the time also to just bring up the next presentation that we'll be having, which is on August 18th. It is specifically about end-of-life care planning, and it's presented by Dr. Samit Kumar. So please join us again on August 18th for our Wellness Wednesday event, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you again, Dr. Moya-Tapia. This was great.
my pleasure. Thank you everyone for your time.